I know I normally shoot these intro tests with the lens with a different, you know, with an actual background, not the plain studio background. But I was in the middle of recording a piece for this lens, the 50mm tilt from TTArtisan, when this curious little box arrived with this lens, the one that you already know what it is because of the title, the AF 27mm 2.8 from TTArtisan AF. So, you know, how's it doing? Let's crack it open, have a little look at it. Well, it's already cracked open. You know what I mean. We're going to see what's what, get some random samples on the go, and then we'll have a chat about it. I mean, it's already out now by the time this video goes out. I do have a pre-production copy, so, you know, there might be some tweaks. Hopefully there'll be a firmware update, but I'll talk about that in a little bit. But yeah, let's just crack on with it. Nice new funky black box with the white writing. I mean, it is just a box. The usual warranty card, a new style kind of manual. We've got a little lens hood in there, so you know, if you've used the Fujifilm version, you're aware of what that's like. And the lens itself, of course, there's a lot of similarities to the Fujifilm version. But let me just run through a few of the specs. 2.8 to 16, and you've got the automatic DA mode, and you've got these wings here for aperture selection. More on that later. Now you've got a little snap cap here, so you know you can pinch it there or you can pinch it there. And there's the lens itself, 35 centimeters minimum focusing, 39mm filter thread, focal length, full frame equivalent of 40.5, and a 56-degree angle of view. Now, once we pop the little lens hood on, be interesting to see exactly how much that does for us, but there it is. Tidy, and it's on. Now the snap cap will go on top, but it's not secure once that ring is on. That is a bit of a pain in the neck. Whoops. It is secure without the lens hood, of course, but you know, just for the crack, I like to test these things properly, and it's a little bit of extra protection even if it doesn't cut down too much. Now the manual focusing ring, we're gonna have to talk about that later. I'm not really interested in it. Of course, this is an autofocus lens, and that's what we're here for. Now, dare I put this on and not tap it? You'll have seen there's a USB-C port on the lens rear cap, and you'll see the contacts there. So that is for firmware updates, and that is a real nice innovation, for want of a better word. It's a nice touch there from TTArtisan, and I think we're going to need to see some firmware updates. Again, more on that in a little bit. Now this weighs 84 grams with caps, so you know, almost nothing. Inside there's a whole 7 diaphragm blades, 6 elements in 5 groups, and yeah, specs wise that is basically it. But just so you could see what it's like, I don't have the XF27, either of the iterations. I don't have that, but there's a lot of pictures now online showing that, and you know, people comparing them. We will mention how it fares against that one later on. Design wise, fairly similar, obviously going for the same sort of thing. Will it really take you away from wanting to spend that extra? We'll have a chat about that. Yeah, let's get out and have a play. After some proper real-world use, there's a few things worth mentioning, but overall the build quality is not too bad for such a light lens. The slightly stiff aperture ring is a little awkward to operate, and if it were ridged all the way around, it would be more practical. The manual focus ring is very loose, and the snap cap doesn't really feel secure when you've got the lens hood installed. Now, we've got to say that USB-C port there is a great inclusion, so let's see how it goes once firmware comes along. There's definitely room for improvements via that port. Now, autofocus. It's actually pretty good. It's smooth, not as fast as the Fujifilm equivalent, but perfectly fine for general photography and some video clips such as you saw in the intro, which was done with the X-T4, by the way. It plays fairly well with eye detection, but a firmware update would be welcome to make it more accurate and consistent. Here's a little random test clip just to give you a little bit of an idea. Sharpness is very decent wide open, and contrast is fairly well looked after. Colors render well, and overall I would say the image quality is fighting for a place in the budget bag. But before we say more, here's a static test where the only thing that changes between frames is the aperture. See if you see any issues. After doing that test, my feelings about the image quality didn't quite match up to my real world testing, and it goes to show you can't beat actually getting out and shooting in the real world, getting the real feel of a lens. I love that what you see is what you get nature of shooting JPEGs on the Fujifilm system. It really excels at that, and you know, adjusting on the fly, getting the exposure right in camera as opposed to technical shooting, having everything perfect across the aperture range without having to mess about. That's not really for me. Most of the time, you're not going to notice most of the flaws in the real world. Vignetting is definitely present wide open. You would have noticed that immediately in the intro, for example. The lens struggles when pointed towards the sun and other strong lights, and I've got a feeling that hood isn't really doing that much. One of the shots you just saw, in fact, shows how the light entered, bounced around the inside of the hood and formed a ring on the image, so that was fun. Before we wrap up, here are a few rough portraits taken at midday. The nearest equivalent is the very similar XF 27mm at £419, but this TTArtisan is only £159, and while being roughly 20% bigger, let's say it's more or less 75% as good, and that's a win at 38% of the price of the XF. And if that's all you can spend, then I don't think you're going to be disappointed. A little tweak to the firmware to iron out the focusing itself could bump the score up a little bit, and maybe your copy will have a more secure lens cap. So, you know, valiant effort, TTArtisan. Now, how about having a crack at that 18mm f2?